From Korea to San Antonio, I love repping and talking about bands and musicians and just anything that comes from my hometown, and I love it. So I'm really happy to talk about this next band here because they're young, hungry, and they're from my own hometown of San Antonio. 210 Countdown City, baby. What's up, everyone? It's your boy Matt Diazable coming at you with some new music reviews. Thank you for coming on by. I always appreciate it and try my best not to take it for granted. Messed up there, but whatever. Today I'm checking out a band called Fear of Loss with their latest EP called Waves of Pain. And a little background on this band, I've already said it, they're from San Antonio, my hometown, and they are a hardcore beatdown style band that's been around since about 2023. And unfortunately, even though I go back home a lot to watch a lot of shows, I still haven't caught them yet. But because I covered other bands and try and keep up with my local scene, I've heard about this band a little bit. They played at some really cool venues like around town. One that was called Snake Hill. It was a really cool venue for a good while, and they played there a lot. And so that's where I heard their name. And so I would love to give a nice spotlight on some young musicians coming up in the scene and support my scene in any way I can. And with this latest EP, Waves of Pain, it's a 6-track EP that aims to bring, emotional weight and sonic brutality. Built on thick riffs, pounding drums, and just very guttural vocals. And so I would say this latest EP from the band is really digging into some really slow burning heaviness, some political themes here, and a familiar palette of hardcore influence. While there are flashes of intensity, but much of this EP kind of struggles with the sense of hollowness and a tendency to lean too heavily into like well worn out ideas. There's a little bit of repetition here and a bit of like an empty feeling as you listen to it. The EP opens up with the song Cursed, and it's a very slow, crawling descent into some really heavy hardcore music marked by pounding drums and just a really low end bass playing. It's a promising start with some really death metal influenced vocals that bring a very hefty feel to it, though the structure of the song, it feels a little bit predictable and you kind of already know how the song's going to end before it even gets there. But regardless, I want to play a small clip of Curse so you get a sense of just the heaviness they're bringing here.
It's a feeling that I just can't take. I'm burning that I carry every day.
I'm pretty sure it's heavy, you hear it, but you know how it's already going to end without me finishing it. And they continue the same pattern of heaviness on the next song, Type Shit, where, the mix is a little bit sharper and the drums, once again, demand your attention. However, the riffs feel a little bit basic and lacking any really spark or inspiration, it feels like. Like you hear this and you kind of feel like you've heard it from somewhere else. There's a strength in the breakdown for sure. Like it's a heavy breakdown, but yet I can't shake the feeling yet that like something feels off about the track. Like it's missing that creative push to really help it to be like a big contender in the genre of hardcore. Things do kind of pick up a bit with the next song of Refusal, where, it's a bit faster and has more of an urgent cut to it. The riffs tear through things here and just sound more dynamically diverse, and there's moments of dissonant guitar work here that just make it some of the most interesting and most textured work on this EP. Even so, there's a reoccurring issue here, and that is, it's pretty hard to ignore, is that the songs often feel like different shades of the same structure. Whether it's slow chugs or simple breakdowns, there's not that much variation across this EP. And so the pacing kind of falls into like a weird lull a lot of the times. That being said, the vocals, they are doing a really good job of commanding here on this track and just being like very raw and emotional. Even though when the instrumentation feels a little bit thin, the vocals, they are coming through almost on every track. So that's very impressive. So I want to play a clip of a Refusal for you so you get a sense of just like the urgency they have at the start of this song. And, they kind of try to switch it up a little bit. Starts starts off pretty good, and then it goes into that heaviness, which is heavy, but you know, it kind of gets repetitive over a while. Then you get like a sample-based interlude here called Gashin Kafinan 1970. Not too sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Sorry if I messed it up, guys. But I will say it provides a very pivotal and nice moment of reflection. It's a very clear and well-placed recording that discusses the suffering of Palestinians and brings much needed like thematic grounding to this EP, adding a lot of emotional resonancy that carries into the next track. Then you get the song Genocide, which opens up with some of the biggest and probably most aggressive drumming tones that you hear on this EP, paired with some really sharper and more denser riffs. At first, they sound very good, very sharp, very prominent, but then as the song progresses, just like earlier songs, they kind of fall into, you know, like a similar bogged down sense of bland repetition. Despite that, on the music side of things, lyrically, it strikes hard because it's focusing on real world violence and oppression with a lot of sincerity. So, you know, there's some good and bad in some of the songs they're writing here, and I can really appreciate that. So I want to play a clip of Genocide so you get a sense of just the sharp drums you hear on this song.
We want to kill thousands and thousands of innocent lives, so you try to deny. Pay the oppressed, cause they refuse to comply. But neither will I. Shooting children in the fucking...
Pretty good, right? And with this song, I would say, you know, the band's intentions really outweigh their execution here. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit repetitive, but what they're talking about, what they're doing here, they knock it out of the park in terms of having a song and, you know, with feeling and convictions to it. And then closing things out, you have the title track here, Waves of Pain, which, you know, circles back to its core sound of this EP, which is slow riffs, pounding rhythms, and just a very moody atmosphere. Unfortunately, there's still that feel of like, you know, familiar stuff that you keep hearing over and over, and that's the noticeable emptiness from the mix and everything. The production lacks that grime or grit that needs to really make this song hit even harder. So it's very lacking in terms of the production. But there is some like thrashy like guitars that are thrown into this song that really injects a lot of energy to it. And when the band really locks in, they get into a bit of a more groovy, heavy section that really comes alive, even if it's really briefly. But once again, it's a very short and quick moment before the band goes back into their over reliance of, you know, dragging their tempo down and just repetitive structures. Heavy, but just not that, you know, fascinating. Waves of Pain is, you know, I think this band's second release. So it seems like the band is still trying to find their footing a little bit in the hardcore space. And I would say they're not quite there yet. I would say the band's strongest elements are definitely, you know, their sharp drums, their guttural vocals, and their occasional dissonant guitar riffs, which I would say suggest that, yeah, there's some potential for this band to be something very different, or if not very expressive and good in the hardcore scene. But their overuse of, you know, similar slow chugging sections and lack of variety leave much for this EP to feel a little bit on the flat side. With more experimentation and a tighter sense of dynamics, I think they could really carve something out in a more distinctive identity in the heavy hardcore scene. But as it stands right now, I feel like there's nothing too, you know, special about this band to really like make them flash and really be very impressive. They're doing all right, but they need a little bit more work. And I would say if you're a fan of Zabalba, Sanction, or early Harm's Way, I think you'll be a fan of this band. So I would have to give this latest EP from Fear of Loss, Waves of Pain, an okay to simple 6.5 out of 10. Links down below. Tell me what I should check out next. Always thank you to the San Antonio scene, the Korean scene, my homes. I appreciate y'all so much. And like always, guys, I will see you in the pit.
Been thinking good things about you.